Hey guys, welcome to another episode of League Chat with the Stat. 7 rounds into the NRL season, and we're really starting to see this NRL ladder take its place. We're starting to see the best teams who is really dominating the competition after 7 rounds. We're starting to see who is really suffering at the bottom, and we're starting to get a bit of some surprise packets that are on the good side and even on the bad side. But thank you for joining me on a brand new episode this week, guys, covering all things round 7. Now, guys, you know what we need to do? We need to go through this NRL ladder. And look, as I said, it's really starting to take its place at the moment. We've got Penrith coming in at first, who are still undefeated on 14 points. The Storm with a very dominant win, sitting in 12 points. The Eels bouncing back after last week's poor performance, and they get a good victory over the Knights, sitting in third. And the Sharks dominant against Manly, sitting in fourth, both on 10 points. You've got the Cowboys, Roosters, and the Sea Eagles on 8 points. So Cowboys have now jumped up to 5th. And then you've got the Rabbitohs sitting tight on 8th position on 6 points. Joined with the Rabbitohs are the Broncos, Dragons, and the Warriors on 6 points, with the Warriors suffering a very heavy defeat, which sees them drop a few places there. Then you've got the Titans. The Tigers go up to 13th spot from 15th. And you've got the teams coming down like the Knights and the Raiders on 4 points, and the Bulldogs still with the one win so far this season, sitting on 2 points. But guys, thank you for joining me on a brand new episode. Remember to always like the page, make sure we're sharing it around and letting everyone know about what we're doing here. But look, round 7, guys, I want to get through everything that happened over the last weekend of Rugby League. Sharks 34 defeated the Sea Eagles 22. And let me just start by saying a great dominant half from the Cronulla Sharks. They obviously slipped away from what they were building in that first half, but the Sharks just found their targets. They found who they needed to dominate and what side of the field they needed to get through, and they got through very, very well. Siosifa Talakai, moving into the centres, has been unbelievable, but I don't think there has been a better half of rugby league seen from an individual than Siosifa Talakai. The way he dominated Morgan Harper and Jason Saab on that right-hand side for the Sea Eagles defence and dominated that left-hand attack was unbelievable. He treated it like he was a bowling ball, and he was just rolling over these guys who were literal pins. It was just a sight to behold. It's not even debatable just how dominant and how influential that 40-minute performance was from Siosifa Talakai. It's probably the best half of footy I've seen from an individual ever. We've seen a lot of great things happen in games where players will score 5 tries, or they'll set up a ridiculous amount of tries, or they'll score a lot of points themselves. But in one half of football, I've never seen a defense so, how do I put it, so poor. Especially down that left-hand edge. The Sharks found that they were weak. And look, it all started from kickoff. Cherry Evans not getting the bounce of the ball and getting tackled in the in-goal when they had the ball for kickoff. When you look at that, and then the Sharks scored straight away through Siosifa Talakai, you just knew it was going to be heavy traffic the whole way through. And that 40-minute period was so diabolical from the Sea Eagles, especially down that left-hand edge, that Tolutau Kula had to come in from the bench, and Morgan Harper got hooked for the rest of the game, which was very disappointing for Morgan Harper, but he got absolutely demoralised by Siosifa Talakai. And, mate, the thought of him running at me would scare me, so I can imagine how Morgan Harper felt. But, look, the Sea Eagles, they tried to come back in that game. You could see that in the second half, things started to go their way a little bit. Once they got a bit of possession, they were able to capitalise on some opportunities. Unfortunately, what we have noticed is you get some moments in the game where they really needed to score that try or get a repeat set. And unfortunately, it just happened a bit less than what the Sea Eagles would have really liked. Now, the Sharks obviously dropped back a lot from their first half performance and only converted the 2 points towards the end of that game. But the Sea Eagles did have a genuine chance as they scored a couple of tries right after each other to really get back into it. But it just became too little too late for them. And unfortunately, the Sharks just held on bravely in that second half. Obviously, the weather playing a big part in the contest. But look, like I said, it was a dominant first half from the Sharks and a disappointing one from the Sea Eagles. The Sea Eagles found a bit of rhythm to come back into the game, but it was too little too late, unfortunately. Siosifa Talakai, 20 runs, 267 metres, 2 tries, 3 try assists, 3 line breaks, 2 line break assists, 3 offloads, 8 tackle breaks, and 8 tackles. And that majority of those attacking stats were in those first half, if not all of them. So he's just put his hand up to get ready for State of Origin. You look at a player like Siosifa Talakai, what he can bring to a side, and just how dominant he can be, someone like him would genuinely thrive in an Origin arena. Wouldn't be totally against him playing a middle field role or even coming into the backs at some point. While I do think Ryan Pappenhausen would probably be the best utility, I think Siosifa Talakai is giving a genuine run for their money. And we get to see a showdown on Thursday night between Siosifa Talakai and Katoni Staggs for that potential jersey vacated by Latrell Mitchell. But look, Sharks 34 defeated the Seagulls 22 and has the Sharks right up there in the top 4. Now, the next game, the Broncos 34 defeated the Bulldogs 14. And look, Broncos have lost 4 games straight up until this match. This was an absolute must-win for Kevin Walters' side. This was a win that they really needed to just get some winning routine back into that squad. They've suffered some heavy defeats over the last 4 weeks, but look, they finally get a win. And it took 60 minutes for them to click, but it's that influence of Adam Reynolds that I've been talking about for so long that it really came into effect, and he really took charge of that game, scoring a try and setting 3 more up. And it was really important for Reynolds to step up against a team like the Bulldogs. I know they are the worst team in the competition at the moment, and it's very clear just how poor they're going, but it was very important for Reynolds to show that at any given time he can step up, and it's good to see him stepping up against a low-quality team like the Bulldogs. But look, I've got to give it to the Bulldogs here for the first 50 to 55 minutes. They really took control of that match. Taking into consideration there was a lot of players missing due to COVID-19 and the other 8 or so players missing due to injury, this was a game for the Bulldogs that I thought could snap our losing streak. I thought that they could really match Broncos and get into the grind. I thought that they could really play at a level where they can just outclass them. But it held on for 50 minutes, 50 to 55 minutes. And then the second Adam Reynolds scored that try, it just became downhill for them. They couldn't hold on to their defense. They conceded a lot of yardage, which gave Broncos perfect opportunity to capitalize, and which they did. So, but it feels like the Bulldogs really dropped their heads at that point and they just couldn't recover from it, which was really disappointing. Now, some highlights from the game. I was really glad to see Tamari Martin come back playing first grade. Been over 1,000 days or so since he had retired due to bleeding in the brain. But it was really good to see him playing that fullback role. Now, even though he is a half, he showed a couple of glimpses here and there of exactly what he could do in that side, especially at fullback. But it was really entertaining to see him back playing footy, still being 25, 26 years old as well, still with a long career ahead of him. So it was really good to see him coming back into the fold. For the Bulldogs, this was an opportunity to let some players really shine, to step up. And I thought Jacob Kiraz had a really, really great game for his first game. Made about 120 odd meters, had about 7 tackle breaks. He looked really threatening every time he took a run. Good to see one of our juniors really ripping in and having a great time out on the field. And I really thought that Billy Tikrikas really coming off the field and played a pretty decent role there as well. So really good to see some of the new debutants get a run in at first grade. But look, like I said, the Bulldogs were missing that class. Really good to see Josh Adokar score 2 tries as well. Finally get on the scoring list after a bit of a drought there. But you know, when he starts to lift, all the players start to lift around him, and it's really important that he continues to get early ball. But the Bulldogs still have a lot of work to do. We still need to put in an 80-minute performance. As the games go on, they don't get easier. So for the Broncos, again, a must-win. It was a must-win for them. They got it. For the Bulldogs, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And we just need to, as a fan, we just really need to hang in there and hopefully start to see some wins coming through. Can't afford to see another loss anytime soon, but I also can't afford to see Warden Spoon finish once again. Payne Haas dominant once again. Came off with a shoulder injury after the first 5 or so minutes, but then he came back on and played out the rest of the game. 23 runs, 254 meters, 138 post-contact meters, a tackle break, and 39 tackles. Just the missing piece to what they really needed. They really missed him last week against the Panthers, and to see him come in against the Bulldogs and really dominate in the middle of the field was just very inspirational for the Broncos there as well. The Cowboys 30 defeated the Titans 4, and a great bounce back from the Cowboys. Look, they really needed that win. When you take all things into consideration that they had been in a bit of a slump previously. Now, obviously, they got that win over the Raiders 18-12 in Canberra the day before Good Friday. But this was one, what I'm talking about, just for a game to be won at home. They haven't won many games at home in recent times. The last time they played at home, they were dominated by 20 points to 6 from the Roosters. So it was really good to see the Cowboys make their mark at home and really put in a dominant performance. Now for the Titans, they were really hopeless. I'm not going to lie. The way they played wasn't as entertaining as we've seen. A very stupid move to put someone like David Fifita in the centers. We've seen over the last few weeks what he can do with some early ball. And you can't give him early ball when he's playing in the centers because, if you're, I always say this, if you're a second rower, you can play center. I've always said that. If you're a center, you can play second row. But you need someone like David Fifita to get early ball to really make a difference. Now, he doesn't have the speed like a center to go out there and actually make a massive impact, someone like Tony Staggs would. But he looked really out of place at times. In attack, wasn't as involved. Finished up the game with 13 runs, 91 meters. Had about 4 errors as well. Dropped a few balls. You don't put someone like him, who's a $1.2 million player, in your side, who know you can get him early ball, will play 80 minutes, and put him in the centers. I don't back the call. If I can be completely honest, I think it was a poor coaching strategy from Justin Holbrook because he saw someone like Dave Fifita get a lot more limited ball than what he's usually used to. So that's not what the Titans needed. Now my questions are starting to come in about their spine. I remember saying at the beginning of the season that their spine really need to click, but it's a very young spine and they're going to need a lot of time. You know, with AJ Brimson moving to fullback, not starting the year, and then you got someone like Jaden Campbell who's been out with a rib injury the last few weeks, and have Jermaine Osako come into fullback, has really just made things uneasy for the Titans. But look, we can go back and we can sit here thinking if Fogarty moving to the Raiders was the right move, but they need some class in their spine. You know, I know coming from a Bulldogs fan, and we don't have much going on our team with the spine at the moment, but looking at the Gold Coast Titans, their spine isn't dominant. They don't have a key spine, an experienced spine. They really need to recruit in those areas to prove that they can be a top 4 side and a dominant side to be in the back end of the finals. But when you look at the Cowboys, you look at exactly just how well they performed. You know, obviously coming off that win against the Raiders, moving into this week at home, saw that it was a Queensland derby and all stood up for the occasion. Well, one play that I loved was Scott Drinkwater. You know, I've been loving his return at fullback since he's been dropped the first few games. And he's really making a solid case to be the fullback for when Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow is going to be available. He's one that really caught my eye, and I'm really enjoying just seeing his development as a player. But I'm really loving Jeremiah Nanai. If you want to talk about development in players, you look at Jeremiah Nanai. He scored about 7 tries in 9 or so games. Really firing for the side, and maybe too early to call. I know they're lacking a bit of consistency, but Todd Payton has turned Tom Dearden from an organising half to a running 5'8", which has been really solid to see. And you can also notice as well that, that the way they're playing and the players that they've got in their certain positions are really carving up. You know, I'm loving seeing Valentine Holmes play some great football. You know, he's trained all preseason in the centres, has gotten a feel for the position, and he's really doing his best week in, week out to make an influence in that side, even though he's getting a bit more limited ball than what he's used to. But he's been playing some really good football and is making teams have to prepare harder for someone like Valentine Holmes. It's been really, really good to see. For the Titans, like I said, they've got a lot of work that needs to be done. However, I'm sure that when the time comes around and they start picking their players in the certain positions, they'll get there. But look, I think the Cowboys way too dominant, way too good, and we'll move on to the next week. The Tigers 23 defeated the Rabbitohs 22. This is the second consecutive week that the Tigers have won in Golden Point, and it's so good to see the Tigers winning some football games. Let me tell you, they've had a obviously shocking start to the year. Win Easter Monday clash against Para, back up 5 days later against a Rabbitohs side who got a win against the Bulldogs last week, but when you look at the way they played, it wasn't appealing. Coming to this week, and the Rabbitohs started the exact same way, on the back foot, not holding on to the ball, making 60% completions and 16 errors in a game where they shouldn't have been, you know, this close into it. But the Tigers just getting it done. They completed 46 from 48, which is 95% completion the entire game. When you consider that and you consider everything else that the Tigers have been trying to build the last few weeks, those are some insane numbers. It's an insanely high completion rate. They only made 3 errors all game. And you're really loving to see what the Tigers are doing. Moving Jackson Hastings to 7 and Brooks into 6 has really gotten Brooks running the football a lot more and letting him be able to play his game. He has someone that has never been a 7, has always been a 6. But it's been really good to see Jackson Hastings come in with the experience he's gained over in the Super League, really take the league by storm, but also start to show why he was such a highly rated junior coming through the ranks. But it's been really great to see Maguire finally getting some smiles on his face. Really good to see that the aura around the Tigers is building nicely. And it was another important win for them as they continue to, it's taken a while, but continue to build into the season. But look, that in circumstances like this, it's really important someone like Adam Reynolds is in the side to take that field goal. But Joe Arrow's attempt at that field goal was absolutely ridiculous. It's times like this where Lachlan Ilias really needs to kind of own these moments. And if he hits it, great, he hits it, and to win for the Rabbitohs. If he doesn't hit it, a lot more training needs to be done in their week-to-week prep for them to get that organised and for them to be able to ice those moments. But to see someone like Jai Arrow kick the ball dead, have a woeful attempt at the field goal, for then the Tigers to march up the entire way and for Hastings to call the play to Brooks for that field goal, it really just sums up how the Rabbitohs have really been going at the moment. They could have taken a bit of confidence from the game against the Bulldogs, but they came into this game, undermined their opponents, and Tigers get the win. So really good to see the Tigers fans smiling about. Maguire's getting a little bit more relaxed in the coaching box, which is really good to see. I thought James Tamo for the Tigers was really good. 17 runs, 159 metres, a tackle break, and 30 tackles. But the real one for me, Keon Kaloma-Matangi in a losing side. 22 runs, 205 metres, a try, line break, 3 tackle breaks, and 26 tackles. Really playing some good football, Kaloma-Matangi, and is just doing his best to build on the form that he had last season as well. The Eels 39 defeated the Knights 2. For the Eels, a really important bounce back. They lost in Golden Point last week against the Tigers, and they really came in, had a job to do. They dominated the Knights in every asset of attack. They outclassed them in defense, and they really didn't have to defend as much as they would have liked, as much as they needed to, on their line, considering the amount of times that Knights made that many errors and lost that and dropped off that many tackles. The Knights were genuinely diabolical. The Knights were so bad. They had soft goal line defense. 4 or 5 of their tries should not have been scored. That one from Isaiah Papali'i scooting off dummy half in last is held up by every team every other day of the week. For the Knights faithful, the 25,000 on Knights faithful, to pack out the stadium, to have lost their 5th in a row, and then to have not scored a try is extremely embarrassing. Did they get caught up in the circus of Kalen Ponga's re-signing? Probably. But their attack looked clunky. There was no structure. It seems like that the team that we are used to seeing of the Newcastle Knights are back. From what I've noticed, they have gone away from what they've built in the first 2 weeks. Those are the only games that they've won. They have now lost the last 5 consecutively. Now, the Bulldogs have lost 6 straight, and while I can definitely understand that, you look at the Knights and how well they started the season, they need to go back to that, and very, very quickly. I said it last week, they need to go back quickly, but this week, they've got to find a way quicker. They come up against a Melbourne Storm outfit that just chucked 70 on the Warriors, but they're going to have to come up with something because the way they've been playing, especially at home has been insanely embarrassing. And a sorry from the coach from the press conference really isn't good enough to cut it from a team who started the season so well. On top of this, no Knights forwards ran over 100 metres. There was no go forward from the forwards to be able to have anything for the backs to do and for Ponga to do anything else himself. Very disappointing. The one thing I have with Parramatta, and I know I'm attacking Parramatta, even though they've won 39 points to 2, is when you take a look at their side, you see someone like Dylan Brown who is playing some unreal footy in the halves. He's dominating every game that he's played so far. You chuck him in the centres. Now, all right, he played relatively decent in the centres. No one's denying that he played bad, but you put someone like Jacob Arthur in the side who offered absolutely nothing in that game against the Knights, and you had someone like Dylan Brown playing in the centers. You've got Zach Sini in the centers in the juniors. You've got Solomon Naiduki. I know you've got players that are out at the moment like Sean Russell, Mike Acevo, players like that missing. Marana Niukore, who's been out as well. But surely there are some better options than putting Dylan Brown, one of the most informed 5'8s in the competition at the moment, putting him in the centers. It still doesn't make my mind, but this is a classic Brad Arthur move. If it's really about trying to get Jacob Arthur some more game time and chucking him in the halves, I don't get it. I don't see it. He offers nothing, and he's was pretty useless in that win against the Eagles. He did absolutely nothing to really lift the side. It was all off Mitchell Moses and the forwards. Ryan Madison was a steal for me. 17 runs, 193 metres, 80 post-contact metres, 3 tackle breaks, 2 offloads, and 16 tackles in a 45-minute stint as well. So really good to see that from Madison. Trying to build on coming back from those concussions he had last year, and it was a really important performance for him. The Panthers 36 defeated the Raiders 6. Panthers, again, dominating at home. They make it 21 straight wins there. They remain undefeated. They're the only team that are undefeated in the comp so far. There were moments in this game where the Raiders were in it. I thought they were pretty okay in that first half. They had the opportunities to really capitalize, but they really didn't take them in the first half. But in the second half, kicking the ball out on a full and the players not staying behind the kicker off at the point of kickoff, the Raiders scored off both of those opportunities. And it's moments like that would be frustrating Ricky Stewart. Really basic things. You cannot be kicking the ball out on a full off kickoff. And you can't have almost 6 or 7 players on that field standing there running in front of the kicker as he kicks that ball. You can't be doing that. It was very disappointing from the Raiders because it looked like they could have done something in that second half had they held on to their nerve a little bit longer. While we knew Panthers were always going to win, it was sad that fight got lost amongst all those big errors there from the Raiders. Now, Josh Papali'i, the only player running over 100 metres for the Raiders as well, kind of sums up their night. Corey Haruanora, 5 runs, 26 metres is not good enough if you're playing 80 minutes a week. So I thought that was very disappointing. But there was a moment there where Cleary broke off a tackle from Haruanora that led to a tailor-made try that really should have been taken care of. It was when the Panthers when Cleary kicked the ball and it bounced off a Raiders player and it was 6 again, and Haruanora couldn't complete the tackle and basically just let Cleary go. And when Cleary got the ball and he sent it out wide to Targo, who then sent it to May and scored, that moment really summed it up for me. That whether there's no care or whether it was just a lazy play, just summed up their night in that moment. So it was very disappointing from the Raiders there. The Viking clap by the Panthers fans, there's nothing better than to taunt the opposition team by doing something like that. And I thought that was a really, really cool moment. You can look at it as a bit of pride from the Panthers players the Panthers supporters, but it's part of the game. We saw Enders do it for the Sharks when they won that preliminary semi-final game back in 2016. So look, I'm not entirely against it. I kind of find that it brings something else to the game, but great way to taunt the players and a great outcome for the Panthers, obviously winning that game as well. The entire Panthers pack really shared that load. Each of them got over 120 odd meters. And they all played a fairly even game. And I really thought it was great to see Sonny Luke, I believe that's his name, forgive me if I'm wrong, but he came off the bench, a 26-year-old making his debut in the NRL, and I thought he played a really solid game where obviously it took some time for Coruscant, and he played 50-odd minutes, but got him some game time, and he came on within 2 minutes and set up that try for Isaiah Yeo. So, really good to see that these Panthers juniors really flourishing and they can come into first grade and really just dominate. So it's been really good to see. Dragons 14 defeated the Roosters 12. Every time you watch a game on Anzac Day, especially between the Dragons and the Roosters, you're always going to get a great battle. And this is what this game was. It didn't disappoint at all. The Dragons started off pretty well. That try to Francis Mollo. The Roosters came back towards the end of that game or towards that mid-period of that second half. When the Dragons lost Jaden Sewer to that ankle injury and Jack Bird to that arm injury, it was going to make things tougher, for sure. But very big round of applause and credit to the Dragons who held their nerve in defense Looked a bit clunky at times in attack, but they held their nerve in defense and they stopped every approach that the Roosters had on their line, which was really impressive to see. They'll take a lot of confidence from that game and use that on next week against the Tigers. And hopefully the Dragons can use this as a stepping stone to really build on the rest of the season from that performance. The Roosters couldn't capitalize. Very clunky in attack still. Not the Roosters that we're used to seeing. They're starting to look pretty mediocre, which is something that I wouldn't have expected to say about the Roosters, but it's just not working out for them at the moment in their attack. You know, what they're trying to do and the plays that they're trying to create don't seem to be working. And it's starting to raise a bit of concern for me when I look at a side like the Roosters. I still think they'll come good. Well, I still think they're in the premiership. If they click by around 12, 13 and they just fly with it, potentially yes. I can still back that. But at the moment, the way they're looking, it's looking a little bit gloomy at the moment. Luke Keary will need to step up more. Sam Walker needs to do a bit more as well to really take control of that side and to really dominate. Now, wasn't a big fan of Trent Robinson's decision to put Jared Waerea-Hargreaves and Victor Radley off the bench. Waerea-Hargreaves, he always does, but it's a big NZ clash. You want those guys starting on deck. You want your best team on the field in that moment. But they had, I think it was Radley had come on already down 12-0. So disappointing from the Roosters. I don't know if that is the way Robinson was looking at it, but I just didn't think it was the right call. The Daniel Tupou high shot is a sin bin every day of the week. What it sounds like to me is that the NRL just based it off whether the person is a good bloke or whether he has conceded many high tackles in the past. But it brings me to the point that usually it depends on the crowd's reaction, where the crowd will react and the result will go their way. But if there was a moment that a player needed to be sin bin, it was Daniel Tupou in that moment. Now, he's a great player. He's one that is never usually in trouble. You know, obviously when he hit Ravalawa head high, he apologised straight away. He knew he didn't want to be part of any sort of melee, getting involved in that. But the referees really needed to take ownership of that and really send him off. Sin bin him for 10 minutes. The fact that they didn't blows my mind. And the right call was made to have one of those referees dropped. So thought it was a sin bin every day of the week. Shouldn't have stayed on, but that's just the way it went on that day. Francis Molo, 12 runs, 126 metres, a try, line break, 2 tackle breaks, and 26 tackles. Really good performance from Francis Molo. And Siosifa Talakai, 13 runs, 146 metres, 71 post-contact metres, a line break assist, 4 tackle breaks, offload, and 22 tackles on the losing side there. And the last game of the Anzac round, the Storm 70, you heard me, the Storm 70 defeated the Warriors 10. And it was just a demolition job for the Storm. You know, the first half, they went up in their 16-10 at halftime, and a couple of things happened in that second half, losing Josh Curran and Daniel Zelezniak, and it was just full throttle from there. Ryan Pappenhausen gets benched with 12 minutes to go, and it felt like he was still out there. They just dominated the Warriors. The Warriors had their heads down from the second they came back from halftime. That shocking concussion to Denis Zelezniak, glad to see that he's doing well, really hurt the side, and that knee injury to Josh Curran as well. Josh Curran has been the glue for that forward pack for a while now, especially stepping up in the absence of Tohu Harris, but really disappointing to see the Warriors really drop their heads after that. No team in the NRL should be conceding 70 points. No team. I don't care how good the opposition are. If you're going out there to pick the best 17 every week, there is zero excuse to concede 70 points. I thought it was very disappointing. You know, looking at the Warriors in the last month, they've won 3 of their last 4 games. They were unlucky to lose to the Roosters last week. But their attitude just dropped. Their head just dropped. The senior players didn't take ownership in trying to rally their side on. And while being in the game at 16-10, only had 3 sets in the whole second half. Completely outclassed and completely dominated. And they got absolutely smashed by the Storm. 70 points to 10. I just can't believe that was the end scoreline. 54 points in 40 minutes is not good enough by any means whatsoever. So very disappointing to see that from the Warriors. They get 2 steps, 3 steps forward, and they go 25 steps back. And that was an example of that. You know when the Storm are really, really taking the piss? When Nelson Asafa-Solomona is the one putting up your bombs, and absolute pinpoint accurate bomb for Pappenhausen's try. You just know that they've completely lost it. Ryan Pappenhausen, playing insane football at the moment. 16 runs, 158 meters, 22 points with 5 goals from 8 attempts, missing 3 goals, scoring 2 tries, with 3 try assists, 2 line break assists, and 3 tackle breaks. Just a very dominated performance from Ryan Pappenhausen. It's between him and Talakai, genuinely, for that 14 jersey. If Stephen Crichton or Katoni Staggs get that centre jersey for the New South Wales side, I think it'd be Pappenhausen ahead of Talakai for that utility role. I think that what he brings to that side, just that pocket of energy, is really important. And it was a very good performance from Pappenhausen once again, really leading the side from the back and bringing back that confidence he had, obviously, from when he got injured in Magic Round last year with that sickening concussion. It's really good to see him with a full preseason dominating every game he's playing so far. Now moving on to our Supercoach segment. After finishing everything from round 7, we discussed all things Supercoach. I finished with a score of 1,366. Pretty solid, I'll take it. I won 3 of my leagues as opposed to all 5, which is very disappointing. My trades this week, I'm trading Chris Randall, who's made me my money, to Sonny Luke from Panthers. I know it's a week early, but Chris Randall has a high break even, so he has to go. And I'm trading Isaac Targo to Siosifa Talakai, minus 51 break even, already sitting on $600K. Destined to make another potential $200,000 to $300,000, so I really needed to jump on that. Considering using a booster trade, to be honest, to upgrade my bench halves. Really, probably waiting next week to get rid of Lockton Ilias, but this week I might get rid of Schneider to a Nuffy and maybe use that money to try and improve my forward pack elsewhere. Maybe pick up, hopefully getting enough money and hopefully with the right trades going my way. Trying to boost up someone in my back line as well. So we'll definitely be looking to do that. But look, we'll see what happens at this stage, but I've only made those 2 trades. Chris Randall to Sonny Luke and Isaac Targo to Siosifa Talakai. News around the NRL world. More players have been linked with the Dolphins. Sean O'Sullivan, Matt Lodge, and Cody Nikorima have all been linked to the Dolphins. Sean O'Sullivan was rumoured to be a done deal, but that's very far from the truth at this stage. But there's a genuine chance O'Sullivan could be the halfback for the Dolphins next year. Viliami Valea re-signs for 2 years with the New Zealand Warriors. Matt Croker, who was on the radar of the Dolphins for the Newcastle Knights, re-signs with the Knights for 2 more years. New South Wales Rugby League have launched Supreme Court action against ARL Commission, the Australian Rugby League Commission, over dispute to have Dino Mezzatesta run for the New South Wales Rugby League Board. Considering what he's done for the Cronulla Sharks in most recent times, I can't seem to wrap my head why he can't be running for the leading of the New South Wales Rugby League Board. It does not make sense in my mind, but it's now heading to the courts. The Storm have signed Tariq Sims on a 1-year deal starting from next year and have signed Joe Chan over in the Super League. His father played 70 games. His name's not coming to me at the moment, but his father played 70 games for the Storm, was one of the first few to have played for the club. And his son now, Joe, is playing in the Catalans Dragons in the Super League at the moment and will be making his way to the Melbourne Storm for 2 years starting in 2022. The Bulldogs are facing some serious salary cap issues. Josh Jackson, Luke Thompson, and Corey Allen are being rumoured to have been squeezed out. With Josh Jackson taking $750 of the cap, $850 by Luke Thompson, and $500 for $550 by Corey Allen, they're looking to potentially be squeezed out of the club by next year to allow Reid Marnie, Ryan Sutton, and Viliami Kikau into the side. Tom Gilder has received an early release from the North Queensland Cowboys and has signed a 3-year deal with the Dolphins. And the Warriors have signed Dejan Arce with immediate effect, who was also named on the extended bench for the Warriors this week. So that's all the news from the NRL world. Now, moving into all things around the 8, the Broncos will come up against the Sharks on Thursday night. Billy Walters will start at hooker with Korope moving to the bench. And for the Sharks, Dale Finucane will start with McInnes moving to the bench and Braden Trindle dropped out of the side altogether. I'm going to go Sharks here and Sharks by 14. I think they'll win this one and should win that comfortably. Titans will come up against the Panthers. AJ Boomson will take the spot of Jermaine Asako at fullback. Will Smith will go to 5'8". Philip Sammy will return from a knee injury on the wing, with Patrick Herbert going to the centres, Fifita moving into the forwards, pushing Kevin Proctor to the bench, and Jared Wallace to the reserves. Now, Jaron Jolliffe is out with a calf injury, so Moriaki Fodawaker will go from the bench to the starting side, while the other men on the bench will be Tanner Boyd and Herman Sasa, who's playing his first game of the season, and his first game since Magic Round last year, where he was suspended for 6 games for that poor high shot. And for the Panthers, they are 1-17, continuing with their red hot form. I'm going to go Panthers over the Titans, and I think the Panthers will have a field day there. And the Rabbitohs will come up against the Sea Eagles. Isaiah Tass will replace Tane Milne, who's out through suspension, and Saliva Havili will replace Jacob Host, who's out with a shoulder injury. For the Sea Eagles, Tolu Taukula will start in the centres, taking the spot of Morgan Harper, who's been dropped to reserves. Hamali Olakawatu has been suspended for the week. And Andrew Davies out with a shoulder injury. They've been replaced by Carl Lorden and Ethan Bullimore, with Ben Trebojevic and Kurt DeLuey to come off the bench. And back into the starting side with the returns of Martin Tapau and Sean Kepi. In this game, I'm going to go the Sea Eagles. I still don't have that much faith in the Rabbitohs to win, and I'll go Sea Eagles by 10. The Warriors will come up against the Raiders. Many changes here for the Warriors. Dylan Witteni-Zelezniak's out with a concussion. Josh Curran's out with a knee injury. Aaron Penne is suspended, and Edward Kosi, who had a shocker of a game, are all out of the side. Rocco Berry and Viliami Valea will take the spots of Witteni-Zelezniak and Edward Kosi. And Jack Murchie and Elisa Katoa will move on to the bench, with Bailey Stevenson pushing into the starting side at lock there. For the Raiders, only the one change. Elliot Whitehead returns to the starting side, pushing Harry Onara to the bench and Harry Rushton to the reserves, playing New South Wales Cup. And I'm going to go the Raiders. A bit of a shock here, but the Raiders will need to get out of that 15th spot to start climbing up the ladder there. So I'm going to go the Raiders over the Warriors. The Bulldogs will come up against the Roosters. Brett Naden and Jake Averillo will take the spots of Jaden Okunbor and Jacob Kiraz, while Avasi Manafagai will take the spot of Billy Tsikrikas, who is listed as a reserve. For the Roosters, Kevin Nagamo will take the spot of Daniel Tupou, who's suspended for the week for that careless high tackle. Look, Roosters could potentially bounce back. I'm just going to back the Bulldogs for this week, and hopefully they get that win to get them off the bottom of the ladder. The Eagles will come up against the Cowboys. Both teams 1-17 this week, and a little bit hard for me to see the Cowboys win, so I'm going to back the Eagles by 6 points. Should be a nail-biter of a game there in Darwin. The Knights come up against the Storm. Only one change was Simi Sasagi taking the spot of Dane Gagai, who's out for the next month with a cheekbone injury. And for the Storm, they are 1-17, the demolition job of the Warriors. And I'm going to go Storm again, expecting a big performance from them and to really embarrass the Knights once again at home. The last game of the round, the Dragons come up against the Tigers. Quite the derby, this one. Josh Maguire takes the spot of Jaden Suwa in the back row, who's out with an ankle injury, will be out for an extended period of time, with Tyrell Fulmer-Ona coming onto the bench for the first game of the year. And for the Tigers, Dan Norrie's out for the next 6 to 8 weeks with an MCL injury. Stafford Toll will start at fullback, with Oliver Gildart and Luke Garner coming into the centres. Kelma Tuolagi comes back into the back row after being admitted last week due to illness. And Alex Seyfarth will move over to the bench. And tough game this one. Probably going to keep my money on the Dragons, but I wouldn't be surprised if for a Tigers win. Guys, thanks so much for joining me on a brand new episode of League Chat with the Stat. You know where to find us on all our socials. Guys, with Magic Round only a few weeks away, I'll be there. So if you do see me, come say hello. We'll be looking to have a great weekend over at Magic Round the next few weeks. But until then, let's get ready for round 8 as it approaches us this weekend. Enjoy your rugby league. Let's hope your teams get the win and we start getting some consistent tips right this week as well. All the best, guys. Take it easy.